So, Coach, I guess I'll start us off. You got St. Francis coming up, this weekend. What's your initial thoughts on that match?
Well, I think anytime you go over the mountain to Loretto, you're going to face a team that really wants to protect its home court. And certainly, this group over the last 3 to 4 years has taken some pride in playing pretty well in Loretto. So, I think we're going to have our hands full. I think, Stephen Braswell and Keith Kagrice, the two graybeards of that group, have been in enough of Penn State St. Francis battles to understand how important it is in the EIDA scheme of things. So there's no doubt in my mind that come Saturday when the whistle blows, the Red Flash are going to be ready to go.
And, Coach, obviously looking at your team health-wise, I know Calvin Mendy has missed the last 3 matches with injuries. Is he going to be available this weekend?
No, it's doubtful. He's still probably week to week.
And for you, how does that? What challenges does that add to you? Kind of trying to figure out your starting lineup when you have players go down.
I think this is one of the things that has become more prevalent in the men's game. With 4.5 scholarships, you have an honorable mention All-American or one of your key components go down. Very few of us have the guy on the bench that can step in and continue with those numbers. So you end up trying to juggle a little bit. You move some people around, maybe. You try to minimize the impact or spread the wealth of what you do have around a little bit more than you did before. And, it really becomes a juggling act, and it also impacts your training because now you're trying to move people around, and you may have on the other side of the net less experience to train against. And so it's just not me. I certainly want to make that clear. It's not a Penn State, oh, woe is us. It's something that I think everybody deals with in the men's game, that, the depth of talent is just not there. And maybe a better way of putting it, the experience depth isn't there. So, you try to make the most educated approach to how do we come up with the numbers that we're losing, or how close can we get to what Cal gives us, and you go from there.
So do you think that the lineup you had last game is what you're going to stick with and work with until Cal comes back?
More than likely. Jason Donarovich has done a very creditable job in the middle, both offensively and defensively, and been a surprising advantage to his serving. Jalen has had the experience on the right side and certainly can terminate balls for us. I think that leaves Aiden and Matt McLaren and Lee Smith, the 3 outside hitters, to be used as their strengths best fit what we need.
And, Coach, talking about Jalen a little bit, last weekend obviously had the big serving performance against Ball State. Just from what you see with him in the gym, is that, maybe not 6 aces, but is that the type of serving performance do you think that he's capable of sustaining throughout the season, match to match?
Yeah, that's the big question. What can he sustain? Because it certainly wasn't sustained the next night against Fort Wayne. There's no question that the arm that he has can score us points. And, Jalen has spent his entire career trying to reach that elusive level of consistency that enables him to go out and score more points for his team than for the team wearing the other jersey. And, I think over the course of his career, he's gotten better at some things and and he's working his way toward becoming a better point scorer and volleyball player. But if he can sustain his serving over the course of the year to a level that, and we're not even talking about no errors. We're talking about putting teams in trouble and making sure that we score points when he's serving and don't give up the easy ones. I think our team would be so much better for it, and Jalen knows that. And to his credit, he's working hard to try to make that happen.
Coach, after last Saturday's game, I think it was, Matt McLaren said that this year's team is mentally tougher than ones that he's played for in the past. How would you kind of assess this team so far from a mental standpoint?
I think there's something to be said about experience and having to go through matches that maybe everybody tells you should win and you don't. And maybe going through some matches that everybody looks at you and says, there's no way you can win, but you do. And this group of upperclassmen have had their share of that. And I think it tends to do one of two things. One, it could tell a team, how are we as good as we think we are, and can increase that self-doubt or that team doubt. Or you embrace the fact that you're going to be in matches and you have the ability to weather some storms, and maybe you don't win all of them, but there's a confidence that starts to build and a comfort level that starts to build in, hey, we're at 2020. Regardless of who we're at 2020 at, we're at 2020. Now, let's see what can happen. And I think that the both matches, Friday and Saturday, leads me to agree with Steve a little bit that I think we've learned, or we're in the process of learning and embracing kind of what our personality has become, and I kind of like it. I do agree with Steve when he's saying, hey, look, we're a little bit more resilient than we've been in the past. And, we were down and we came back. We didn't drop off. And I think there were some very good things that allowed him to say that. And I tend to agree with it.
Are there any of the guys that you think have particularly taken that leadership role and instilled that in the rest of the team? Or is it more just a collective mindset that's developed over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll go back to, I think there's something to be said for being put into those situations and not necessarily being successful all of the time. But the guys on the court that have been there, Aiden and Lee, and Steve McLaren's been in that role. Jalen's been on the court for those. Gear's been on the court. Certainly last year, Luke has been on the court for them, and Royce is libero. So I think that it's something where it's more of a collective approach to competition and kind of how the year is playing out.
Coach, just going off that a little bit, I know this summer during the Stanley Cup Finals we were chatting a little bit, and you said that you wanted your team to be like the Pittsburgh Penguins and resemble them. I want to ask, do you see any similarities with this team and the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Yeah, besides the injury stuff? I wish I could say that we're similar to the example that the Penguins seem to be doing. I don't know if we're there yet with this group and playing the game the right way. I still think we're leaving points on the court. I think resiliency is maybe one of the initial steps toward playing the game the right way. I think, no matter what the score is, if you do the things that you're supposed to do, if you keep yourself in the moment, if you worry about your next contact, only your next job responsibility, if you embrace those things, then A, nothing seems to surprise you, and B, you find you have many more opportunities to score points than you think exist. So I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think we might have taken a few steps that leads me to believe that in another 6 weeks or so, we could be in a position where we're playing a better level of volleyball, and where we're not getting beat by pure physicality.
Coach, can you describe what the atmosphere at St. Francis is like and how you're preparing your team to play there?
Oh, I mean, it's typical. They had, past couple of years, they had a group of rowdy students known as Rummy's Rascals there. I'm not sure if they're still in existence, but any place we go in the EIVA, we get a huge crowd for that particular match. It doesn't matter whether it's St. Francis or New Jersey Tech or Princeton or Harvard. So, how do we prepare them? I don't think we do. They know. It's something that I think we look forward to. I think we'd have more trouble going someplace and playing in a small, emotionless gym. So I don't think it's a huge factor, especially with these guys. They've all the guys that have been on the court have played in these gyms before.
Yeah.
Coach, Steve, over the past couple of weeks, has had a couple of good offensive games. How do you think he's developed as an offensive player this season with Nugent leaving and him having to take a larger role this year?
Boy, I think I mentioned to you guys after the match on Saturday, between the latter part of Game 2 and Game 3, you just got the sense that McLaren just wanted to put us on his back and kind of say, hey, come with me. And I really like the way that he's starting to let the game come to him. I think he's getting more and more comfortable with his ability to just play the game, with his ability to do what he does in his own way. He doesn't have to be Nugent. He doesn't have to be Aiden. He doesn't have to be Cal. As long as he's Steve, he's fine. And I think that's the big thing with him. How he came in as a walk-on from camp, and he's the type of guy that just puts his head down and plows through. You ask him to do something, he gets done. He's an engineering major, so his entire career at Penn State has been one of hard work. And again, I think he's one of those guys that has embraced that and has said, hey, I'll work as hard as I can for as long as I can and see what happens. And I think it's starting to pay off for him right now.
Coach, looking at your opponent for this upcoming weekend, St. Francis, what's been your thoughts on their level of play this season, especially given that they suspended a couple of all-conference starters at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, they had a great start to the year with their performance out at Santa Barbara, and they gave Fort Wayne and Ball State all that they could handle, and I think a team that has a Braswell on it has somebody that works his butt off and plays as hard as he can for as long as he can. You get something like that and it becomes infectious to the team. So, and Keith Kagrice has been around for a while. So, he gets it. He understands what is going on and his role within the team.